What if every meal, every workout, and every night's sleep depended on math and medicine? Well, this is what life with diabetes looks like. Hello everyone, my name is Paula and I have type 1 diabetes. Today I want to explain you what diabetes is and what it looks like to have diabetes. Through this channel, I want to show everyone what really is diabetes, what society perceives about it, how we can raise awareness about it, and how we can support people with diabetes. So, diabetes is not a single condition. There are actually quite some different types of diabetes. The most common ones are type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. Today I will explain you both of those diabetes, and then we will go more deep into type 1 diabetes, that is the diabetes I have. Let's start explaining what type 1 diabetes is, okay? So type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune condition. And what happens here? So what happens here is that the immune system in our body destroys the beta cells in our pancreas. So what do these beta cells do? These beta cells are the ones responsible to produce insulin. So therefore, like the body destroyed these beta cells in the pancreas cannot produce any more insulin. Therefore, there is no insulin in our body in a natural way. And what is insulin? So insulin is a hormone that works like a key. It opens the cells to allow glucose to go into our body. Glucose is the body's energy source. So what happens without insulin? Without insulin, the glucose stays in our bloodstream, and this makes our blood sugar to rise quickly. Therefore, with type 1 diabetes, you have to be treated with insulin, either with an insulin pump or with insulin injections. An important clarification about type 1 diabetes is that it's not caused by sugar, diets, lifestyles, or anything a person could do wrong. It's just an autoimmune condition caused by the immune system attacking the beta cells in the pancreas. This type of diabetes, type 1, is also common in children or adolescents, but it can come at any age, but it usually develops in younger ages. So last information about type 1 diabetes I want to show you today is that, as I mentioned earlier, a type 1 diabetic needs insulin to survive. So for this, we have two different types of insulin. We have the short-acting insulin, which is this one. This acts as our insulin for every time our blood sugar is high, every time we are gonna eat something with carbs or sugars, and to correct. Next one, we have our long-acting insulin, which is this one, and this works as a base for your day. This insulin, you just have to inject it once every 24 hours. Next, thanks to technology, diabetics count with different tools that help them manage their diabetes a little bit easier. So first of all, we have continuous glucose monitors. I'm gonna put it here. These are sensors that go by Bluetooth to your phone, providing you with how your blood sugar is. So you have a graph and it shows you the level of your blood sugar. We also have insulin pumps, which are these ones, and this is a substitute for the insulin pens I showed you before. So next, I'm gonna introduce you to type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes works completely different than type 1. So how does type 2 diabetes works? In type 2 diabetes, the body still produces some insulin, but what happens here is that the body becomes resistant to it. And what does this mean? What this means is that the key doesn't work properly. And eventually, the pancreas will produce less insulin. In type 2 diabetes, there are different factors that can help develop it. such as, for example, genetics, age, lifestyle, or environment, for example. Also, I want to mention that this type of diabetes, type 2 diabetes, is more common in a more elderly age. I would also like to introduce you some data so you can have an overview a little bit of diabetes. So there is an estimation of 9.5 million of people living with type 1 diabetes in 2025 compared to an 8.4 million people in 2021. This is an increase of 13%. And this data is people with type 1 diabetes globally. Next, I would also like to show you this graph here. This is the amount of people living with diabetes, including type 1 and type 2. And as you can see in the graph, the amount of diabetics just keep increasing year by year. So this is a topic everyone should take seriously and to raise some awareness about it so we can help as much as possible. I would like to introduce a section to explain you a little bit better how the daily reality looks like with type 1 diabetes. So with type 1 diabetes, you have to have constant management every day. So for example, it requires monitoring your glucose levels every now and then. So for example, me, automatically I go all the time to my glucose sensor app to check how my sugar is doing, or you get alarms when it's high or when it's a low blood sugar. Furthermore, you also need to count carbohydrates every time you're gonna eat to see how much insulin you need to inject yourself. Also, if you're gonna do some workouts, planning if you need to take some insulin when you are eating to take less, or maybe eating something small before doing your workout. It also might require planning your meals a little bit. There is a lot to think about when you have diabetes. What also happens is like when you have had diabetes for already quite some years, these things come naturally. You actually don't think about them anymore. So that's something to take into account. So apart from this, there is also a big mental load daily that comes with diabetes. So for example, planning ahead. I don't know, always carrying your supplies, for example, always trying to, sometimes I'm like, oh, did I forget my insulin? Did I take my sugar tablets? So there is always something like maybe getting ready for your sleep when you are stressed. I had this day where I had to give an important presentation. And so when you are stressed, stress releases cortisol and that makes your blood sugar go high. And I remember this one day my blood sugar was very, very high because I had to take a presentation. And prior to the presentation, I was getting very nervous. And then out of nowhere, my blood sugar just rise a lot just from being nervous. So lastly, the point I would like to highlight the most about this video is why awareness matters for diabetes. So I believe in the society we live, a lot of people have assumptions or misconceptions about diabetes. So when people understand the condition better, they can support diabetics in a better way. And awareness is not only about knowing what diabetes is and medical facts about it, it's also knowing and learning and realizing what the human side of diabetes is, what people deal with, and everything that is behind the word diabetes and in the mind of all diabetics. So, improving understanding makes life safer and more inclusive to people with diabetes. It encourages empathy, it creates conversations, and it makes a community more informed. So, let's talk about diabetes and let's change how people see diabetes. I hope you enjoyed the video and you learned something today. Thank you so much for listening and stay ready for the next video. Bye bye!